Hi, my name is Andrew Froning. I'm doing my term project on the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster. This is the second largest international nuclear event in history, only second to Chernobyl. It left severe environmental impacts locally and globally through the leakage of the radioactive material. This was caused by human neglect, essentially. And even though this happened back in 2008, we're still feeling the effects of it today. And trying to gauge a sense of how the radiation has affected us in the local lands and people. So this was caused by the company that built this power plant. They built it on the Pacific Rim fault lines where a lot of earthquakes occur. So a 9.1 magnitude earthquake occurred right just off the coast of Japan, and it caused a 46-foot tsunami. Now, the facility did exactly what it was supposed to do in the event of an earthquake. It shut down, it diverged power to the local generators, and everything worked fine, actually. But what didn't work out so fine was the seawall, which wasn't high enough for the tsunami that was generated. The seawater came over, it killed the generators. The technicians didn't have any access to what was going on inside those nuclear uh, rooms, and an explosion occurred. So TEPCO, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, was the one who built this power plant back in 1967. And they actually ignored a lot of studies on trying to figure out what the appropriate wave size, the seawall size should be for the waves that may come in the event of a tsunami. And actually, one engineer, less than a week before the earthquake occurred, he said that they should build a higher wall. And while they wouldn't have been able to build it in time, they ignored his suggestion still, along with years of engineers and studies of people saying they should be higher, and it just kind of got ignored and passed over in the bureaucracy of the company. And actually, in 2017, they got an approval to restart two reactors at another plant that was also lying on some fault lines because initially they were shut down right after this 2008 explosion because a lot of the Japanese public were fearful of this nuclear energy source. They didn't want it. So then they shut it down. And recently they've decided, yeah, it's time to start this back up, even though it's on fault lines. And we can't always rely on technology to make sure that things go smoothly when there's a 9.1 magnitude earthquake. Some environmental effects of this: cesium-137 was used in the reactors. It is leaked into local fields and water sources, even beyond 20 kilometers. But 20 kilometers from the power plant is where the uninhabitable zone. And cesium-137 has also leaked in the Pacific Ocean and been found in California in recent years. So we know it was airborne, and we know that it got into the ocean. It was literally found pouring out a couple of days after the explosion. To try to contain this contaminated waste, uh, Temco, they decided to build a perimeter ice wall that was 100 feet deep to literally freeze the soil in between these pipes that were going to allow this coolant to go through to create a man-made permafrost. So this would prevent contaminated water from leaking out and uncontaminated water from going in and getting contaminated. It's a neat idea. It didn't work so well. It took 2 months for the permafrost to really become an ice wall, and it didn't even work fully. A lot of the contaminated water still got out. Cesium-137 was found in a lot of areas outside the facility. It was really expensive, but it just didn't work. And as bad as this is on the local lands, receiving a lot of radiation and even the globe, uh, it's not as bad as Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a giant explosion where a lot of radioactivity was released. A lot of the decontamination zone was a lot larger, and there were a lot more deaths in Chernobyl. For this Fukushima accident, there were actually no directly associated deaths. We're only going to see maybe some early cancers come on and some birth defects from the local population, which was expected to be very high, and it is high, but it's not as bad as they thought it would be. So these things are awful, but there's one thing that isn't so bad. And it's important to study these events because this is all due to human error. Engineers were saying this wall needs to be higher, and the bureaucracy was telling them, no, we're just going to keep things the way they are. And if we just start to listen to one another and keep open minds and become transparent as a society, we can prevent nuclear disasters like this, especially when we're handling crazy things like nuclear reactors and we don't have to affect the environment around us. And these are my sources. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.